Not someone new to the channel, but one of the first people to expose Hollywood for its evil doings as well as things that relate to Epstein. I'm talking about Mel Gibson. Today we're taking a deeper look into things that he has said over the years, and I'm talking about over a decade of warning us. But again, an instance where no one listened, but instead looked at him like he was crazy. Let's dive in.
Mel Gibson just revealed exactly what was happening on Epstein's island. Connected all the dots.
Yeah, and Mel Gibson was one of the first. There have been many since, but he was one of the first whistleblowers on anything relating to Epstein or, like I said, the darker side of Hollywood, followed by people like Roseanne Barr, Rosie O'Donnell, etc., etc. The list goes on. We literally cover all of them on the channel.
And these parties disgusted him so much that he quit Hollywood. Mel even spoke out about it, and as a result, he was blackballed by the industry. In several interviews around this time, Mel said that Hollywood elites were doing horrific things to children, and parents of child actors knew this. These parents would drop off their kids at hotels and leave them alone with directors and producers like Harvey Weinstein. As long as the parents were making money, they completely ignored what their kids were saying.
Right now we have Amanda Bynes on the screen, who used to be a really cute childhood actress, Disney actress, and then beyond, and now has completely fallen apart. You can see just by her physical appearance the massive changes that have happened. And this is the type of thing. These are the types of people that we need to look at and say something more happened there with them rather than them just being inside of Hollywood. There was a lot deeper, more brutal things that went down. And this is the aftermath.
When I came over here, I was in my mid-20s.
Right.
The first time I really came over here. You know, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand.
Right.
And nobody was really bothering to explain it to me.
They don't.
And and I formed a bunch of opinions about the town and about the people in it that were like, surely that couldn't be, because a whole place can't be like, you know, Weird Town, you know, where the stranger wanders in and all the people are in the bar and they all shut up when he looks at them and they tell you don't go into the house on the hill, and it's like that. And then you go away and you think, no, I was wrong. I mean, that's insane thinking. I'm paranoid. I imagined that stuff.
Mel even made a movie on this and tried to tell the public what was happening behind closed doors. This was years before the release of the Epstein files, and no one realized who Mel was talking about. Now those same videos tell a completely different story. Dozens of child actors are telling the same story.
X-Men director Bryan Singer allegedly met his accuser Michael Egan, then in 1998 at a mansion in Encino, California. Tragically, that was a site of regular drug-fueled pedophilia. Michael Egan, who was 18 years old at the time, sued X-Men director and writer Bryan Singer for allegedly raping and molesting him. Egan describes a network of Hollywood homosexuals engaged in pedophilia. He stated that X-Men director Bryan Singer claimed that these gay men run Hollywood.
Had me over to the house of where these perpetrators in this ring kind of basically started. They pull me away for their sessions and tell me they have gaydar, they have this. At the end of the day, if you don't keep the members of this group happy, we control Hollywood, we can eliminate you, we will eliminate you.
Wow, this is one that I haven't even heard before regarding the whole X-Men thing. I didn't know, and let's be honest here, this isn't about being straight or someone being gay. This is about someone being a good person versus being a criminal. This is not about sexuality.
Threat after threat after threat. At the house it was, I mean, I've had drugs put in drinks, I had liquor poured down my throat, from being where there were rules in the house of no swimsuits, no clothes out by the pool area. I was raped numerous times in that house by numerous individuals, various types of abuse, all throughout that house. It was just something you were like a piece of meat to these people. Wow. And they'd pass you around between them. It was, if I could define what that house was, it's evil.
Now, keep the story in your mind and watch what Mel Gibson said in his movie Sound of Freedom. This movie was directed to expose the inner workings of Hollywood and warn parents about what these directors and producers were doing to their children.
It's crazy because a lot of, like, this is right here is Nickelodeon. All of these shows that we grew up watching, Disney, Nickelodeon, and all of those types of shows, this is deeply entwined in all the crime that's going on.
From the beginning, you're going to feel the pain of the father taking his kids, who is approached by a recruiter saying, your kids can be models, they can be in movies. Father dresses in a suit, takes them to this room, and he takes the kids there. They're excited, put the kids in the room, and the girl says, come back to pick them up at 7 o'clock. He says, what do you mean? Come back to pick them up at 7 o'clock. He leaves, comes back 7 o'clock, no one's there.
Shut down.
That's how the movie starts. It's disturbing.
Wow.
It's emotional. It's tough. It's painful. At the end, Jim Caviezel gives a message. When the movie ends, 3 minutes later, he's given a message, profound message that you have to watch. The stats that they gave, that 20 plus million child pictures were uploaded on the internet the last year, a 5,000% increase in the last 5 years.
Those are absolutely insane numbers and disgusting.
The worst part about the situation is that it isn't even a secret what these pedophiles are doing to children. Everyone in the entertainment industry knew what Harvey Weinstein was doing to child actors and models, but no one did anything.
Right.
The abuse went on for years before anyone ever spoke out. Why is that? Well, anytime someone new tried to escape the abuse, they were blackballed by the industry and labeled as difficult to work with.
Did you see Ariana Grande in that image just a few moments ago? Just worth noting.
You were expected to remain silent and cover up the crimes.
I imagined that stuff. That couldn't be the reason for why so-and-so was acting like, could it? And then you find out later on the track that you are exactly on track with a lot of this stuff. Not specifically on track, but that you could, that some of your worst nightmares were real at the time, and you think, it does rip your life to pieces.
Wow.
Does it?
If you'll let it.
Yeah.
And it's always pounding at the walls. It's these little guys, these little heathens with no soul downstairs with horns on their head with a battering ram trying to like beat your walls in.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take very long before you realize, or before it gets to you. It's cascading on you all the time. You can't get away from certain attitudes, from certain modes of behavior that this town and the industry dictate. And no matter how strong you are, when you come in off the farm with those convictions and a certain line of attack, no matter how strong you are going to be affected by this place.
No,
it's going to divert you from where you were going.
Sure.
You're going to be diverted. You'll eat yourself alive here. And I think it takes that kind of cockroach resilience to survive in this town.
Now, you got to give credit to Mel Gibson right here. He literally took his career, ran it off the tracks, knowing that that was going to happen, took his own path, funding his own movies just so that he could expose what was going on in Hollywood. And as a thank you for that information, most of society, most of us watching this video right now looked at him like he was nuts.
I mean, this is a bizarre place. The social contract. You can't get mad. You can't get mad. You can't let it get you, because you have to make a deal with everyone else, and it's almost unspoken that you are going to be f***ed over at some point.
I mean, as a matter of interest, do you think it's easier because you're an outsider who came in?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because it was glaring to me because I was an outsider who came in.
It wasn't even just sexual abuse. Several emails released by the Department of Justice show that Epstein was interested in stem cells. and was buying these stem cells from women in the industry who were being forced to have abortions. This is where our first celebrity walks in. According to some sources online, Beyoncé was allegedly selling her fetuses to other industry elites, and one of the people buying her fetuses was Epstein.
Beyoncé was found in the Epstein files, giving up to 16 of her fetuses for Epstein, and states in one of her songs, 16 carriages. I gave them away while I watched them all get their plate. What the You're joking.
This is crazy, because the question that I have regarding Beyonce specifically is, why would she need to do this? She doesn't need the money. She's a massive superstar. So it leads me to believe that there's some dirt on her, some things that are making her have to do this because she's trying to hide something that maybe she was involved in.
What is this life? Y'all are not looking into this deep enough. Go through the files. Go through them. Take the time. Don't sit here and say you know the Epstein files if you did not go through them. Also, the government released these files as PDFs. Did you know that if you change the .pdf to .mov, they're actually movies? They're lying to you, and they redacted people's names and photos that actually were not victims because they're trying to hide. But in some of those clips and some of those emails, it shows a small tidbit of the redacted statement or a redacted photo, and ChatGPT will actually read through all of those images and tell you what it says.
Again, the rumors of this happening have been there for years. There were even videos showing one Hollywood elite, Peter Nygaard, trying to buy a fetus. This same individual later became notorious for serious criminal allegations and convictions involving the sexual exploitation and assault of numerous women over decades.
Stem cell technology that Peter and I are investing in is called SCNT, which takes the egg of a perfect woman specimen, takes the egg and takes out the nucleus and puts our DNA in it.
What these guys right here are actually trying to do is they're talking to a table of women that they think are the perfect example of a woman, and they are trying to buy their DNA. That's the safest way that I could put that right here. And throughout you watching this, some of the faces of the women are not blurred out. You could see the disgust in their face when they actually see what these two men are asking for.
So, girls, for $100, we will pay you for your...
No, you gotta be out of your monkey. You can get paid a lot more than that.
So how much do you want for it? Let's bid. I bid $500 for, you know. I'm prepared to outbid him. Whatever I bid, he's gonna outbid me.
It's gross because they're literally bidding on these women's DNA as if they are just a piece of meat.
I bought about $60,000 worth of it.
Yeah.
If you have a patient, that's very valuable. Umbilical cord, you know, placenta, you know, even your period blood is so rich with stem cells. We regard it as waste, and it actually should be. It should be captured as recycled.
The recently released emails from the Epstein files show Jeffrey Epstein was interested in genetic medicine. He paid a researcher at Massachusetts General Hospital for tests that could be used to help create stem cells.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Epstein that was interested in this extending your life and health. There was a lot of the upper elite. We've seen many people be exposed for doing different treatments that included genetic parts from young that were allowing them to preserve their life, the youthfulness, at least the youthfulness look of them. And it just wasn't Epstein, but he was one of the ringleaders of it.
Investigators found a $2,000 invoice from 2014 for sequencing part of Epstein's genome. The doctor that he paid also provided an estimate for personalized longevity studies that would use gene editing. He told investigators Epstein was enrolled in the Personal Genome Project at Harvard University.
Chrissy Teigen even went on live TV offering money to young, innocent, expecting parents in exchange for their newborn baby's cord blood, cord tissue, and stem cells.
It looks like a present, which it is. This is a cord blood registry kit. CBR is the #1 choice for parents, and it's the most recommended by OBGYNs. CBR is also the largest family newborn stem cell preservation company in the world, helping parents store stem cells from cord blood and cord tissue for their children.
Now, I have 2 children, and I remember when my children were born, the hospitals would ask, do you want to store these pieces that come with the pregnancy, or with the birth, I should say, for the future of your child in case something were to go wrong with your child and they would need some of the stem cells or things like that. And I remember that in part of the document, it said after X number of years, it would be used elsewhere and no longer available. So it makes me wonder, is that whole system a hoax, just a way to get all of those birthing resources, we could call them, for these upper elite to use? Because most likely you're not going to need to use any of those placenta or any of that stuff, because most likely your child is going to be healthy. So 95% plus of people that actually do that don't ever need it. And then where does that go?
But back to my gift. Let's talk about the gift of parenthood. As parents, we do anything to protect our children, from car seats to wearing a helmet on a bicycle to holding hands crossing the street. CBR is another way to potentially help protect them, both during childhood and as they grow up. This is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to preserve your newborn stem cells from their umbilical cord. And to make this even better, it's quick, easy, and happens right at birth. It's a gift for today and tomorrow.
Pedophiles like Peter Nygaard run the industry, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Jay-Z and Pusha T, 2 of the biggest names in the music industry, were both involved with Harvey Weinstein and mentioned in Epstein's emails. Allegedly, Epstein was using Jay-Z as a way to extend his control into the music industry and use his connections to source women for his clients. There are even allegations of Jay-Z being involved in a horrifying case alongside Harvey Weinstein.
Now, this is a tip back in 2009 that was sent to the FBI that references Jay-Z, Harvey Weinstein, and Pusha T. It says, on July 10th of 2019 at 8:20 a.m. Eastern Time, someone called the FBI National Operations Center to identify herself as a victim of a Jeffrey Epstein and others. This person said in approximately 1994, she revealed herself as a past victim of by Epstein. She described the abuse that occurred during parties, and she also described someone as a friend of someone. In approximately 1996, she revealed that she resided with someone somewhere. An unknown man abducted someone from her home when she later awoke in the presence of Harvey Weinstein and Sean Carter, known as Jay-Z.
All right, so right here, basically saying that this person was abducted, and when they woke up in a room with Harvey Weinstein and Jay-Z. And these are accusations that have continued to happen. One other thing I want to mention is the victim here stated that they had been multiple times, up to 7 times, in addition to this occasion itself. So this was definitely not a one-time thing.
Child actors have been saying it for years, but the public never believed them, and Hollywood painted them as attention seekers. Corey Feldman was a child star who once attempted to speak out about abuse in Hollywood. During a live US TV interview, he was dismissed and criticized by Matt Lauer instead of being taken seriously. Years later, Lauer himself would face major allegations. This is the reality of what it's like working in Hollywood. All the pedophiles protect each other.
You freeze. You're in shock. I mean, aren't supposed to handle that sort of stuff. I can tell you that the #1 problem in Hollywood was and is and always will be.
Nobody talks about.
It's the big secret.
And it's widespread?
Oh, yeah. I was surrounded by them.
Literally, you can't say it more straightforward than that. But why has no one been doing anything about it? And why is he going in on interviews and the interviewer kind of shooing it away? The answer is because the interviewer is also involved in it.
For years now, as evidenced on Nightline in 2011, Corey Feldman has been claiming that he and his good friend, the late Corey Haim, were of when they were young actors. Last year, he opened up to our Alex Hudgens.
Why did kids are scared? You know, kids don't think I'm gonna go. First of all, for me, the person that was doing it to me the most, you know, well, I mean, I could say that the 2 people that did it to me were both close friends of mine, or so I thought.
Feldman claims Haim endured more than him. In his book Choreography, he alleges that Haim was on the set of the 1986 film Lucas. The following year, 1987, their film The Lost Boys came out.
It was when we were both on the set of Lost Boys that, things were happening to both of us, not from anyone on the set, might I clear that up, but, outside elements.
How did people not know when these are two, or did they know and they just weren't doing anything about it?
I mean, I know he told a lot of people. That's the thing that's so upsetting to me. It's not like it's just me that knows this story.
Other people know.
A lot of people know.
They're still working, they're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
To give you an idea of just how well connected these were, even the doctors that these actors were being taken to had been bought. This is why there are no medical records or reports despite years of abuse and issues. Epstein had his own team of doctors, and so did Diddy. During the time that Usher was 13 and living with Diddy, there were rumors that Usher had been injured during an session.
You don't even think about this. Diddy, Epstein had their own doctors so that nothing would actually go on record when the children were injured from all of these actions that were going on. I mean, we didn't even get into Diddy yet. That's another whole story in itself, but it looks like we're diving into a little bit right here regarding Usher. And I didn't realize that Usher was only 13 years old when he started with Diddy.
There are no medical records of this happening despite several eyewitness accounts. We finally know why now.
This is a photo taken in Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan townhouse. It seems to show a doctor performing a medical procedure on Mr. Epstein's dining room table.
Wow.
We looked through about 15,000 records from the Epstein files to understand how Jeffrey Epstein cultivated and rewarded a small circle of doctors as a means of control over the women in his orbit. Mr. Epstein dictated when these women got plastic surgery, even when they went to the gynecologist. And he could also take medical care away. In some cases, you also see the doctors help Jeffrey Epstein maintain that control over these women's lives. Here's one really striking example. Jeffrey Epstein is flying back from his island in the Virgin Islands to New York with a young woman who has suffered a really serious injury. He reaches out to somebody named Eva Dubin, former girlfriend of his, and the founder of the Dubin Breast Center at Mount Sinai. And he says, this woman fell off the ATV and needs stitches in her forehead. Can you organize? She responds, okay, Jess Ting, plastic surgeon at Mount Sinai, is standing by. Call me as soon as you land. And then you see the next day from Jeffrey Epstein, Dr. Ting put 35 stitches in her head, laid out on the dining room table. And that brings us back to this photo, which appears to be of Dr. Ting. Dr. Ting declined comment on this photo. When we talked to medical experts, they said, there's no way you do this if you were putting the patient's needs first. If you were doing that, you just take her to the hospital. There's much more equipment, there's many more people, the risk of infection is lower. The only reason you do this is if you were putting somebody else's needs first.
What a great point. Something like a head injury like that, okay, it's not like something that's going to be life-ending, but why take the risk of doing it at someone's personal place on a dining room table instead of the hospital where, yeah, all of the equipment is there. The sanitary precautions are there. What is the reason for doing it at Epstein's place? Well, the reason is because you've been bought.
A name that has recently come under scrutiny is Chris Tucker. Allegedly, Chris Tucker went to Africa with Jeffrey Epstein, Bill Clinton, and Kevin Spacey by flying on Epstein's jet on September 2nd, 2002. Epstein was accused of recruiting a slave on this trip, and allegedly, it was this victim who gave the authorities Chris Tucker's name. Chris denied all allegations and said that he had never met Jeffrey Epstein. Flight logs, however, prove otherwise.
You knew Jeffrey Epstein, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. We flew Bill Clinton and a lot of different. That was a humanitarian trip to Africa, and I met him on that trip because it was his plane. I didn't know who plane we was getting on, but it.
Wow, and I like Chris Tucker, but man. Okay, so he was on his plane. First of all, he said he didn't know him. Now he's saying he did know him, but he didn't really know what was going on. But clearly when you're on that plane, when there are hired workers on that plane, and there's a big queen-size bed in the back of the plane, you know what's going on in that plane, especially when some of the pictures that were shared show things that were out in plain daylight that were going on in that plane. So right now, Chris Tucker doesn't look so good. It looks like he is, being very careful with his footsteps here. Maybe not being the most honest.
It was a whole bunch of dignitary people who was with a delegation, and yeah, I met him, and you know, you don't know people what they do in their private lives, so yeah.
But tell me this, Chris. He was on this private plane, and you could tell that it was a private plane because they called it, what this, Lolita Express?
Oh yeah, it was a private plane. Yes. Oh yes.
But wait a minute. You didn't never go to that island, did you?
No.
Kevin Spacey was on the same flight with Chris Tucker, and his explanation is completely different. He claims that he actually knew who Epstein was, and there were girls on the plane. Chris said there were no girls, so who's telling the truth here?
Wow.
I was very fortunate that President Clinton introduced me a lot of business leaders in London because he knew I was coming to the Old Vic. Do you know who I never asked for anything? Was Jeffrey Epstein. I didn't want to be around this guy because I felt he put the president at risk on that trip to South Africa because there were these young girls. And we were like, who is this guy? So I will say this.
There were young girls on those flights?
There were young girls on those
Wow.
flights, yeah. And that's been out. They've talked about it. But here's my point. There's a big difference between not remembering that I met some guy and some woman on a humanitarian trip where my focus was entirely on what we were there to do, and not remembering whether I went to somebody's island. So I never went to Jeffrey Epstein's island. I did not know him, and I never saw him or her after that morning at Buckingham Palace. He didn't even come to Buckingham Palace.
Is it true that Prince Andrew sought your assistance and wanted you to testify that Ghislaine Maxwell was your guest, not his, during that Buckingham Palace tour?
I heard a report about that, but at no time did anyone ever contact me on his behalf.
Now, this is someone that sounds like he's telling the truth. He is definitive. He has his facts in order. He's not laughing it off. It seems like he's like, yes, I was on this plane and it was inappropriate and I didn't know this man, but they were young. He was spelling out what was going on there and that he was not okay with it. I am much more inclined to believe him than to believe the last one.
And as I say, I'm not friends with him. I never saw him after that.
After the release of the Epstein files, several celebrities started to speak out against pedophilia in Hollywood. These same actors had spent their entire careers silent about the abuse, and at times had even denied that anything was wrong. But now suddenly, they were outspoken because they didn't want to look complicit.
The idea that there are in power, not just in Hollywood, but I think in all across any place there's a boss with underlings in any corporation or any industry, you have a type of politics that goes on that can slide in between appropriate ethics and decorum to, let's see, inappropriate behavior to the point of harassment and behavior.
Well, I mean, I think people understand that, but the larger question is there a culture of complicity in Hollywood where women are afraid to speak up because they'll be blacklisted, men are afraid to speak up because either they're out of the same fear or they just think, well, this is the way the system works.
I think there are people that say, hey, this is how it works, pure and simple, and this is why I got into it, and this is why I have power. This is how it works, and you have to understand that. That does not carry the day. Complicity is also complicity. The people who know, well, look, this is how we do business, and that's what it's got to be done. I'm sorry it's like that. So beware. That's also present, without a doubt, but it does not carry the day. There's also people that were afraid to speak out, who were victims, that did not go forward, that signed, negotiated settlement deals of which a non-disclosure agreement was part and parcel to it. That also does not carry the day. So the dam has burst here.
A non-disclosure agreement, for those of you that don't know, is an agreement that says that you are not going to share anything, any of the information, either in a document about an event or that goes on in an instance with anyone. You are literally signing that you will keep that to secrecy, and if you break that secrecy, you can be sued. So I'm sure that in many cases, NDAs were in place, but that doesn't mean that people didn't know what was going on, that weren't able to say things, but no one was talking. Everyone was super quiet. There were a lot of new faces inside of today's video. Which is the one that you were the most surprised to see?